Hey, everybody, welcome to Locked On Lakers on YouTube. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky joined right now by Kyle Goon of the Southern California News Group, Lakers beat writer. We're going to spend 10 minutes with him getting everybody ready for Game 3. Kyle, how are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you? About to do first playoff game at Staples for the Lakers in 8 years. It's crazy, right?
I was going to ask you, is this your first playoff game covering the Lakers? I was trying to remember when you actually arrived.
This will be my first playoff game covering the Lakers at Staples.
That's what I mean. Yes.
Yeah. I've only been here for the 3 years of the LeBron era. So it's been weird. It's me and LeBron making our debut at the same time. That's kind of the stories, though. We're so intrinsically linked.
I was going to say, I imagine he's going to be leaning on you a lot, just to get through this experience. It's going to be pretty difficult for even somebody like LeBron to enter this new territory. Thankfully, the two of you can exactly. Namaste.
I am excited. You should know that Andy and I really detest the Johnny-come-latelys like you, who showed up for the LeBron years while Andy and I suffered through what we call the crappy years for a lot of it. So thanks, Kyle.
When LeBron comes to me,
Blues, as I call them.
Yeah.
Yeah, when LeBron,
are you kidding? Sacre was a highlight.
When he comes to people like me and Brian, who have been there for championships inside Staples, to lean on us, giving him the hi-hat, forget it. Yeah, he's on his own.
All right, so Game 3 tonight at Staples Center. Kyle, what was the biggest thing that you took away, though, from Game 2 when the Lakers evened up the series?
Yeah, I mean, my question was just, the LeBron injury, AD playing certainly passive in Game 1. Do these guys really have a switch? And I think they do. I think they definitively answered they do. Now, they didn't win decisively. I think you really have to give a lot of credit to the Suns for playing tough and not fading, even though Chris Paul, who we kind of all saw as the veteran leader, was obviously not right. But the Lakers just have more experience. And being in that building, I mean, it was the closest thing we can get to a sellout crowd these days, and the noise was really rising. The Suns at one point had a 2-point lead, and the Lakers just crushed it. So I think that closing lineup that they've got, obviously AD at center, but just playmakers, defenders, they know how to swarm, they know how to get in passing lanes. They can kind of, I don't want to go quite so far as what I'm about to say, they kind of do what they want at the end of games a little bit, and especially in a playoff setting. So I think that really did show, hey, the Lakers kind of have this thing under control, but it's like an arm wrestling match, right? They got to keep kind of pressing down.
Okay, that's interesting to me because that idea of them actually having that switch, the proverbial playoff switch, because this is a team that's still figuring itself out and they've had very little continuity over the last few months. Do you think they actually have like full control and mastery of that switch? Or is it like one of those situations where they know where it's located, they know sort of how to push it up, but they don't always know exactly just the right pressure point to make it move?
Well, I mean, I know the three of us talked about this at the beginning of the season. It's like, what's the closing lineup? Well, it's Anthony Davis at center. It's LeBron at power forward. It's probably KCP and Alex Caruso, and then pick your last guy, right? And that's what it was. And so I don't think it's so much as there is like the proverbial, we got the switch or we don't. I think it's very much Frank Vogel knows at the end of a game, all right, I got this dynamite card. I got the ace, literally, not literally, but he's got the ace up his sleeve. He's got the trusted guys, and he's going to go
amazing.
So I think they're still figuring out the groups that did not play in the playoffs last year, right? And even though Dennis Schroeder's on the floor, I mean, the bulk of that lineup is the wings with LeBron and AD. So Frank Vogel knows how to play. If he plays that last card at the end, there's a really good chance he's going to win that game.
So do you think, in sort of looking into tonight's game, do you think the rotation that we saw in Game 2 is basically what it's going to be going forward?
Yeah, I mean, certainly for this series, and then you'll adjust depending on the matchup. Actually, I think it's kind of breaking pretty well for the Lakers as things are looking right now, because the big question is Andre Drummond useful for every series, right? It's is Andre Drummond being, a defender who is ideally best against another big? Can you play him, start him in every game? And then you look at the next matchup, and you either got Nikola Jokic or Nurk. The matchup after that, it's looking like the Jazz and Rudy Gobert, or the Clippers haven't looked so hot. So
that big Drummond Ivica Zubats matchup we were all looking for may not happen.
I don't know, but I think you actually see for the West a lot of matchups where you can use Andre Drummond, you can use Marc Gasol, a bigger guy, and not lean so much on the AD at center lineups, because I think there is a little bit of diminishing return for that if you just try and make that the whole playoffs like your starting lineup. But it keeps Andre Drummond engaged, right? I mean, he hasn't done this kind of run before. He's never been out of the first round. He's never won a playoff game until Tuesday. So I think that's sort of the master strategy for Frank Vogel right here, figuring out ways where he can use those guys throughout series to keep them engaged and ready to play.
What's your sense right now in terms of LeBron's health with that ankle, and just how much laboring he's undergoing right now just to get through this series, however long the playoffs last?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I kind of compared a little bit, not this is going to make anyone feel good, but to that season he had in 2018-19 where he's dealing with the groin for the rest of the year, even though proverbially it's over, right? I mean, it's a high ankle sprain. It's a serious injury. It's very limiting. I think we've all noticed he hasn't been able to drive the way we're used to seeing. He had some bully ball drives against the Warriors, but I haven't seen it against the Suns really, except on one or two possessions. Somebody pointed out, actually you did, Brian, pointed out yesterday that he only had three attempts in the paint, right?
He's got five within 5 feet in this series. He's taking 17% of his shots from inside.
But shooting 100% though in that 0 to 5 foot range, Kyle. Like, he is picking his spots.
But that's the thing. He's like such a gamer in that sense. I mean, LeBron is not a great 3-point shooter, like a 34, 35 career 3-point shooter, and he's nailing huge 3-pointers in that game. I mean, he's like the only guy who can nail big 3-pointers in that game. So
what do you think it means? What do you think though it means for the Lakers? I mean, LeBron is going to be able to find ways to influence games, but if he can't put the ball on the floor and get to the rim, it really does change a lot of what the Lakers can do offensively. So whether it's tonight or over the course of the rest of the series, what is a LeBron limited in that way mean, like, for how the Lakers operate offensively, and what else needs to happen? In game 2, it was Dennis Schroeder getting the basket, and that seemed to be enough.
Yeah, well, that is the beauty of Dennis Schroeder. He kind of just mixes up the half court offense, and so I think it just requires other guys to be more active. And Dennis is going to be a part of that, and maybe sometimes he takes too much responsibility on his shoulders, I might argue. But if you look at the numbers, having Dennis really improves their half-court offense, like, and a ridiculous amount, like a ludicrous amount. I did a mailbag on this earlier in the year, and it's like, wait, is Dennis really that good? But it just is a guy who is willing to go off the dribble, kind of mix things up, attack switches, and they don't have that as much this year, certainly while LeBron's been hurt. So I think it just requires activity in other guys, and AD is the other guy who needs to be moving toward the rim, either in pick and rolls or just sealing and sealing out his man, as Frank Vogel was saying the other night. He's got to be more active in getting those looks and hunting inside. So I think it's not going to matter as much for this matchup. I was watching the Utah Jazz last night. If the Lakers do end up facing the Jazz, I think LeBron getting back to the point where he can drive consistently is going to be pretty important, because that's kind of what breaks up their defense a little bit.
Kyle, you're a damn master. We are at 10 minutes, almost on the nose right now. Dude, let me tell you something. You do not seem like somebody who is intimidated at their first game inside Staples Center in a playoff setting for the Lakers.
Was born
Nailed
for
it.
this.
You were born.
for this.
You were born for this, man. Kyle Goon, Southern.
The eminently presentable Kyle Goon of the Southern California News Group. Thanks for giving us 10 minutes. We appreciate it.
No, anytime, guys. Appreciate it.
Kyle Goon.